Hi folks, in this video tutorial, I'm going to go through one of the very common job interview questions. This is tell us about yourself. This is mostly an icebreaker interview question that is asked to judge your experience, your communication skills, and often there's no right or wrong answer to this particular question. But rehearsing prior to job interviews can make a real good first impression. So when you ask tell us about yourself, firstly you can summarize your overall experience. This will be very similar to what you had already summarized in your resume. So you could say I have about 5-year hands-on experience in building web applications using RESTful web services, Spring, Hibernate, and you have also got say JMS based messaging experience, and also you can say as much as possible try to quantify. Say you have taken 3 projects through a SDLC, the software development lifecycle, for a company say XYZ in the first 3 years, and the next 2 years say you worked for a financial organization and you've taken a project through writing batch frameworks, Unix scripts, and so on. But as much as possible, look at the job specification and try to marry. Say if you have 5 to 10 years experience, there will be a lot you can bring it to the table. And you need to streamline your answer to the job specification. So you need to look at what it will be relevant to this particular employer and just only cherry pick those experiences and then bring it out. But if you have only 3-year experience, then you can bring out most of your significant contributions. So you can say I have got 3 experience, I have worked with Spring, Hibernate, and if the employer is asking for anything to do with Jasper reports or Drools, then they can say I'll produce some PDF reports with Jasper reports. If you have applied Drools to externalize some of the business rules, you can say you got Drools experience, and so on. So as much as possible, understand the job specification and try to marry up your skills and experience to the job specification. And as much as possible, quantify. So if you say you have built a mission critical application that handles about 300 concurrent users, so when you're quantifying, it has to be your strength. So when you built application, so they're using 300 concurrent users, an application that can handle 300 concurrent users is not a trivial application. So if you had worked on non-trivial applications that are very mission critical, then you can bring out those strengths and your experience in building mission critical systems. Now say that you are a kind of a core Java developer, say with 2 to 3 year experience, and you're trying to break into say the big data. So now everyone is talking about Hadoop and big data. That's a buzzword. It doesn't matter. It all depends on your interest. If you're really interested in building web applications, you can always promote your skills in building web services and web applications and so on. But there are a number of people who would like to really break into, from core Java, it's easier to break into big data and so on. But you haven't got any hands-on experience. But at the same note, there is not much supply in big data as well, because it's a fairly new field and a lot of the developers are learning big data and big data technologies. So in that case, you can really bring out your strengths in your core Java. And also, it is important that you show that you are really passionate about big data. So in order to do that, you need to show that any certification that you may have, say Cloudera certification or even self-taught projects. So I'm not a big fan of gaining certifications and everything, but I'm a big fan of people taking the effort and showing that effort in the form of GitHub projects. So if you are a core Java developer who had trained say for the past 3 months or 6 months or so on, you had been working on self-taught projects, and if you post those projects, create a GitHub account and post those projects, then you can also bring that out in your resume. You can say that you have worked on a number of GitHub big data projects using Cloudera. You can download Cloudera, install on your machine. You need at least 16 megabytes memory, and you can show a few projects on the GitHub. So you can provide a link to your big data projects on GitHub. And also in the interview, you can bring out, say, you are a big fan of developing self-taught projects, and you can say that the project is in GitHub, and you can describe or just discuss briefly about the challenges you faced and what type of projects that you have built. Also, you can approach, there are a few large community organizations that are prepared to take on some voluntary work, and they may have some analytical work. So you might be able to build a few analytical results or reports or whatever for them using the Hadoop, Spark, and other big data technologies. So let's move on to the next one. So basically, when you're answering to the tell us about yourself question, you're not only bringing out your technical skills, but also you're bringing out your soft skills like your communication skills, analytical skills, ability to take initiatives, and your attitude. So when interviewers quiz you for further questions, make sure if you don't know, you answer that you don't know. So interviewers like people who are humble, who take on criticisms, those who don't, speak in a very polite and manner. So these kind of additional qualities will be under scrutiny when you're answering. So you don't want to come as an aggressive person and who knows everything. So nobody knows everything. The technology is very vast. So if you don't understand something, you can say that I don't know much about this, but you are keen to learn, and so on. So in order to answer this, tell us about yourself, most companies from time to time, they have quick wins projects. So if you had worked on any quick wins projects, then you can bring that out as an answer to the tell us about yourself. So you can say recently you had taken on one of the quick wins projects where your organization, say you are working for a financial organization, and the organization you were working for, there was an independent body that was ranking the website for the user experience, and your company's website was, say, ranked 23rd out of the 25 possible positions. So you initiated a quick wins project using the, say, agile development process. So the agile is another big word that more and more companies are moving into. So they are moving into either from waterfall to agile or something called a hybrid, which is combination of agile and waterfall development methodology. So then you can say you took initiative and you devised a, say, 2 to 3 month quick win project. So the quick win project is all about improving the overall effectiveness in a short period of time. So you can say you formed a team of, say, 3 to 5 people, so 2 developers, 1 tester, and maybe a business analyst or a business owner, where you went through the website, you went through the report on the user experience, maybe we hired some user experience consultants or whatever, and you listed about 15 to 20 things that can be done to improve the overall user experience of the website. And then out of those 15 to 20, there could be few things that could take more than 3 months to implement. So you basically cherry pick those top 6 or 7 that could be implemented within the 3-month period. And then you go ahead and just implement those changes. And then after, say, 3 months, the overall ranking was improved from, say, 23rd to 3rd or 4th or whatever. So those kind of experiences if you had. So when you're building this kind of quick wins projects and when you're taking initiatives, you're not only showcasing your technical skills to get things done, but also your soft skills to communicate, to analyze the overall website, and to understand where the improvements need to be. So you're also showing your business acumen, where things can be easily improved, how you can achieve maximum benefits from with little effort. So these kind of skills will be positively received as well by the prospective employers. Then the other area you can bring out your strengths are in what I call it throughout this website is called the 16 technical key areas. So there are a few technical key areas. Every company face these kind of issues. So even though they're not specifically mentioned in the job specification, implicitly I haven't worked for a company or a project that hasn't faced these kind of issues. So they are, for example, performance issues, fixing security holes, fixing concurrency issues. So these are some kind of issues if you have to fix it, you need good experience as well. Some of these issues are intermittent in nature. They don't always surface. For example, the performance issues, when you're building a simple application, it doesn't surface unless you put through a lot of concurrent users or you put through a lot of stress and so on. So you need to do performance testing. So during the performance testing, you will identify some of these intermittent issues. So if you have experience in fixing these security holes, performance tuning, and so on, you can bring that out as part of the answers to these. Tell us about yourself as well. So you only have 3 to 5 minutes or 2 to 4 minutes maximum. So don't keep on blabbering about all your accomplishments. So you know the specification, you only just bring out the key ones. So if you're an experienced person, don't focus too much on your academic achievements. Focus more on industrial strength achievements like fixing these kind of issues, taking initiatives, summarize your overall experience and so on. But if you haven't got much experience, then you need to bring out some of your academic achievements. So after you have done your after you have mentioned that you have experience in fixing intermittent issues, and next big thing is the code quality. So all the employers want to specify that you have to be a code quality conscious developer. That is implicit, and that's every developer has to be should take the quality seriously. So you could say if you have some accomplishments, say in my watchful eyes, I increased the number of unit tests from say 30% coverage to about 70% coverage. That's a big achievement. So this not only shows that you know how to go about writing unit tests using Mockito and any other mocking tools, and also it shows that you are code quality conscious developer, because unless you are conscious about code quality, you wouldn't be taking initiative to increase the code quality from 30% to 70%. If you have got any experience in writing JMeter scripts and doing performance tests, that will be a real plus. If you had worked on functional testing tools, so unit tests will only test a unit, but you need a functional testing look like Selenium or OpenSTA or any other commercial tools to do functional testing and have proper functional testing coverage, and you played a pivotal role in working with the testers in setting up these functional testing environment, then you can mention that as well. Bad Boy is another functional testing open tool that you can use to write your functional testing scripts, and also anything that you write with Bad Boy, you can also export that to the JMeter and convert your functional testing scripts into a JMeter script to do performance testing as well. SOAP UI is another tool. So nowadays, most of the web applications we build, they use AngularJS for the front end, and they will be writing a lot of RESTful web services. So you can write SOAP UI based testing suites to test all the RESTful web services for performance, as RESTful web services for functional behavior. So code quality is another plus. So anywhere you played a pivotal or instrumental role in improving the overall software quality, then you can bring that out. The other thing is the environment stability projects. So most companies, even though they keep on improving, continuously improving the environment, so some of the things people do is obviously a continuous integration. So if you have any experience in setting up Jenkins for continuous integration, setting up company-wide Maven repository. So rather than going out to the internet for the Maven artifacts, companies build Maven repositories, and also then they implement security testing software tools like Black Duck. So when you're working with a lot of third-party open source software systems, you need to make sure that you're constantly scanning for any security holes in the third-party libraries. So one of the ways to achieve that is you have your own internal Maven repository, so you can build that within your company, and then you use tools like Black Duck to continuously scan those third-party libraries to see if there are any security breaches or security holes in the third-party libraries. So if you have any experience in those areas, you can bring that as well. And also the other area is environment stability. So from time to time you have environmental issues, environments going down, environments not working properly. So if you have built some scripts or some processes, then you can bring that out as well. So these are all kind of common problems that many industries face, and they are safe to bring that out because there's a good chance that the place where you're being interviewed for, they face those issues, and they would like to have somebody who knows how to fix those issues or improve the overall environment stability. So that will be a real plus for the organization as well. So I already mentioned that you have to really come out of your shyness and talk up your skills and achievements, but also make sure that you will be quizzed with follow-up questions based on that. For example, if we say that we rewrote the whole batch framework that used to take, say, 17 hours, and then you performance tuned it, redesigned it, and with a modular design, and you introduce multi-threading, distributed caching, you tune the SQL queries, and say you revise the database tables with proper indexing and so on, and then your whole rewrote batch process took only 3 hours. So that's a significant improvement and significant achievement. But when you then further drill down on those questions, how did you go about tuning the SQL, how did you go about performance tuning and so on, you should be able to answer. I've got a number of tutorials on how you can go about performance tuning and how to use tools like Visual VM in this website, so you can go through them at your leisure. So overall, to these particular questions, you are just showing off your technical skills and how you acted as a change agent, you made any changes, you took initiatives, how you acted as a facilitator. For example, you took on the role of, say, migrating your team culture from waterfall based approach to a hybrid approach or agile approach. You can say how you went about facilitating the overall this migration process. So often these kind of non-technical soft skills are looked very favorably because changing people's behavior is not an easy task. That's why the managers and team leaders and facilitators and change agents are well sought after, because technical skills can be acquired, can be learned, but non-technical skills takes a lot longer to acquire, and also employers like well-rounded people, those who have got good technical skills with these kind of additional skills as a change agent, as a facilitator, to keep things moving and make changes. So if we have these well-rounded experience in taking initiatives and championing a particular task and taking through and playing an instrumental role in introducing new technologies or code improvement, quick win projects and so on, then you need to bring that out. So finally, before I wrap it up, one of the other key things, so in order to prepare for this, tell us about yourself, there's a technique called SAR technique. So as in every developer or Java professional or whatever, it's good to have your own SAR technique sheet. So in addition to your resume, think about SAR stands for situation, action and result. So the SAR technique is not only useful to answer a lot of the open-ended questions like tell us about yourself, give me an instance where I showed some initiative skills, so tell us about your most satisfying project that you had worked recently, tell us about some of the challenges that you faced technically and non-technically. So most of these non-technical questions, and also to write your resume, the SAR sheet will immensely help. So what the SAR sheet is all about is you write a situation, you write the actions that you took or your team you took as a team, and the result. And then what do you do? From the based on the SAR technique, you can answer to a lot of the open-ended questions like tell us a project that you are most proud of, and you can pick one from the SAR technique and you can explain. Or if you want to write a resume, you can convert a SAR into a single sentence. For example, say you worked on a mission critical application that was handling say 400 to 500 concurrent users, and it was having a performance problem. So the situation is a performance problem where the application server had to be restarted every day. Then what are the action? So the first step you do in any performance issues is it should be reproducible. So you need to have a JMeter script that say simulate 300 concurrent users hitting the system. So when you have 300 users hitting the system, you basically simulate the problem. And then you need, once you have identified, once you're able to reproduce a problem consistently with the JMeter script, then you go and identify the cause, or you will be using tools like JVisual VM or any commercial profiling tool. So the profiling tool will tell you any deadlock issues or any CPU or memory footprint and so on. And then once you identified, say the problem was in this case due to leaking database connections, and then what do? You go and fix the code. You say in a try catch finally block, you make sure in a finally block you close the database connection. So because the database connections are scarce resource, if you don't close them properly, a lot of the connections will stay open and eventually it'll call performance issue. So every second or third day, then you might end up restarting the web application server. And then you might be doing any additional tuning. So you'll be using JVM heap memory tuning, your garbage collection tuning, and so on to improve the overall performance of the system. And then you'll be running your JMeter script again and make sure the performance issue has gone away. And what's the result? So then we have looked at the situation, action, and the result is the application has become a true mission critical system. You didn't have to really restart. So only time you have to restart is when you do a next release or next version. You release it in 2 months, 3 months or whatever. So it becomes a true mission critical system. So that's one particular performance tuning is a SAR technique. So you have written down the situation, you have written down the action, you have written down the result. Now then you can easily bring this out to any of the questions, say tell us about what you're most proud of, and if you think that's something that you're most proud of in spending 2 to 3 weeks in fixing mission critical performance issues where a company's name was on the line, and all the managers and everyone. So it's kind of, in most cases, when you have production issues, it's a very pressurized situations, and your managers will be behind your back, chasing you on progress very frequently. So if you had taken 1 to 2 weeks to go through overall issues and fix them, it's a real plus. So, and also you can mention this in your resume as one of the achievements in the very first page itself, because mostly your resumes are scanned, only the very first page is really read. So if you don't capture the attention of the prospective employer in the very first page with achievements like this, they're not going to read your resume point by point. So you need to really capture the attention in the first half a page or a first page itself. If you don't do that, your remaining pages will be really scanned and it won't be read properly. So this SAR technique, then you can say in your resume that you came basically you in an application you can say performance tuned a batch job that used to take say 7 hours to run, you reduced it down to say 3 hours. So it has to be, because you can't elaborately write in your resume, it has to be succinct, it has to be short with action verbs. Then you would expect in the interview question. So this arouses the curiosity of the person who is reading your resume, and in the interview then you will be quizzed. How did you go about improving the overall person? How did you make the application the true 24/7 type application? Then you can elaborate on that. So this is where the SAR technique is good. Is more like it goes through your overall experiences and bring out the key performance, the key achievements that you are proud of, and then you can really use that to market your skills in the job interviews and your resume. So another example, if you want to look at it, as I mentioned before, quote quality is very important. So in your resume, so this SAR technique in your resume can become, for example, in my watchful eyes, increase the number of unit test coverage from 40% to 80%. So in the SAR sheet, what you're doing is, situation is that the Java code you were looking at is very hard to maintain, and you try to make some changes. So obviously in any project you'll be doing enhancements. So you try to make a change in one area and another area was breaking. So that shows that the code wasn't written in a proper object-oriented manner, or it wasn't written in a very maintainable manner with a lot of code duplications and if-else statements and so on. So what's the action you will be doing first? So firstly, you need to make sure that the bad code that is written has got proper unit test coverage, because you can't really go and refactor it, because you might worsen the situation and you might change the functional behavior of the overall code and so on. So if a badly written code doesn't have proper unit test coverage, the first thing you do is try to increase the overall unit test coverage. Then you will go and implement some code coverage tool like SonarQube or Cobertura to make sure that it gives you a report on the coverage. And also the SonarQube can give you some code inefficiencies, like it can show you where the code duplication is, it can tell you where there are a lot of redundant codes are, and it can give you a lot of code metrics. So you can go through and implement those recommendations. So, and the next thing is you go through the refactor your code. So you do piecemeal by piecemeal, you go and implement the O technology or functional programming, and you will be deduplicating your code. So make sure if some logic is duplicated in multiple places, you will be removing those duplication, and you will be going through any if-else statement. So that's a real code smell. So if you have a lot of nested if-else blocks, and then you'll be changing that to object-oriented way, and you'll be applying certain design principle like open close design principle or whatever, replacing the if-else statement with open close. And then finally you will be making sure the functional tests are not broken. So in addition to the unit test, it's also a good idea to write some automated functional testing script as well, if you don't already have it, proper functional testing coverage. So you can, after you have done your code refactoring, you can go and write your functional test and make sure you haven't compromised any functionality of the code during the refactoring process. And also you go and write your unit test, and then you can say the result is the application became easier to maintain, extend and reuse. The code coverage was say increased from 27% to say 76%. So that's another SAR based achievement, and they can also mention that in your resume as well. The third thing we have already covered, any quick win projects. So the situation is the website was ranked 23rd, and action you went through a few things, and you picked the top 4 things to implement. And how did you go about implementing it? You used the agile process, the daily stand-ups, because it was a short project, and that will be your action, and the result will be much improved ranking of the overall user experience. The next thing you can do is any concurrency management. So that's another key area. So for example, say your production ready application, when you are profiling the application, you notice that the CPU usage was very less, say 30%. So if you're not properly using the CPU, you're not really taking the full potential of the CPU, your application might be slow and so on. So then you can say how you monitor the CPU usage with the tools like Visual VM, and you can say how you took some thread dumps. So you can do thread dumps every 66 seconds. You can press Control Alt Delete, or you can put kill -3 on Unix machines to do some thread dumps, and you can analyze those thread dumps in different tools like Visual VM or other thread dump tools to see whether there are any deadlocks or whether, and then you can go and fix those concurrency issues, say by reducing the granularity. So you might find you might have put a lock at a method level as opposed to on a granular you are put it on a method level as opposed to a block level. So you might reduce the granularity of the synchronization. And then also you can look at some offending SQL statements or some IO operations that might be taking too long. And then the result is much improved CPU usage. So you went from say 45% CPU usage to say 88% CPU usage. There's another SAR technique that you can bring out is all about is design. Say for example, you're working on an application that are subject to the business rules are likely to change every year or more frequently. For example, the tax laws. The tax laws changes every year. Say the tax bracket percentage might be 30% and the next year might be 35%. So it's a bad idea to put the tax brackets and things like that, or any other compliance. So industry compliance will change from year to year. So any compliance rules, say financial industry have to adhere to a number of compliance rules, and those kind of business logic change very frequently and they need to be externalized. You can't embed those business rules into your code, because then you need every year or every 6 months when these kind of rules change, then you need to change your code very frequently. So one solution for that kind of stuff is to externalize those business rules into a database or a spreadsheet. There are tools like Drools that allow you to externalize these business rules, and these business rules are executed from these Drools. So your application will be making use of Drools, and very quickly you can change rules. Say if certain compliance rule or a particular tax bracket change happens, you can just make a change to the database or the spreadsheet is running against. So you can quickly turn around those changes. So if you have any of those experience in externalizing business rules, then you can mention that. Then the next very common thing is, in addition to identifying security holes with tools like QuickFish from Google or Tamper Data plugin. The Firefox has a plugin called Tamper Data that will allow you to tamper your headers, HTTP headers and post request. So you can easily tamper your GET requests in the query string URL. You can change. For example, one of the things that I did in the past is one of the new applications that I was working with. I went and changed after the user has logged in, I changed the account number from user 1 to user 2, and then I was able to get into the user 2, separate user's account details, which is a big breach of security. So these kind of things, if you're an experienced professional, you can just change around some of the key parameters in the URL, and you can identify those security holes, and then you can proactively take it to your team leader or to your architect or whatever, and then you can take permission to go and fix it. So these skills, this kind of experience and proactive nature will be looked upon very favorably. So if you want to do the same thing to post, tamper your post data, say a user account with 123, and you try to change it to another user to make sure that the system should not allow you to look at other people's accounts and so on. So you use the tamper data plugin to change those post requests and see if there are any security breaches. The another thing I've seen from time to time, a lot of the team members struggle, and where you can really stand out is debugging SSL issues. So most of the RESTful web services and everything, it's industry standard that has to be SSL enabled. And working with SSL certificates and trust stores and key stores is not something that people do every day, but when you have skills to do that, that'll be a real plus. And if you mention that in job interviews and also in your resumes, if you have experience in taking SSL debugging tools like OpenSSL, or another good tool that I've seen is SSL Poke, is a good tool to identify and fix SSL issues. Then overall, you can mention any other technical capabilities, like if you built a system, for example. Recently I was involved in a system building. It's like not a run-of-the-mill kind of project. So run-of-the-mill project is something that you work on building a web application and building RESTful web services and so on. But this one was talking to, say, 3,000 plus petrol sites. So the petrol sites talking to a server back in the office, and then from the server talking to payment gateways and so on. But the key thing about this is it talks low-level protocol like TCP/IP protocol. So it's not a very common thing that you write. So you can bring this out as a real technical strength. So if you have worked on writing low-level protocol applications like using TCP/IP or using non-blocking I/O frameworks like Mina. So Mina uses TCP/IP to talk to multiple petrol sites, and then you are integrating with things with some enterprise service bus tools like web methods or TIBCO or whatever. So some of the commercial tools, not many developers have experience or get opportunities with. So you can stand out from those developers by mentioning any commercial tools that you have experience with, DataStage, IBM DataStage, and so on. So then that will be another SAR situation, action, result kind of thing. You can write it, what you did, and how did you. So this is basically writing a TCP/IP based application to do a FPOS type of transaction. Is kind of a low latency application, because your customer, when he was paying for petrol and who wants to scan and who wants to get out of there, he wants the transaction to happen real quick. So you can say how you went about implementing these low latency applications using non-blocking I/O based frameworks like Mina, and how the payment gateways were used to complete the transaction and so on. So these are some of kind of experiences that you can mention that you are proud of, and also in your resume. And finally, you can also mention a lot of the process improvements. It can be the agile Scrum process, test-driven development, behavior-driven development, mentoring junior developers, setting up the overall environment, system environments, improving the stability of the overall environments, improving the documentation of the overall application and process. In agile environment, you don't do a lot of documentation, but documentations are important. It has to be short and sweet. Don't write 30 pages or 40-page document. It has to be short and useful. So all those process improvements. So we have covered a lot, and you can leisurely go through. So and if you go under icebreaker interview questions and answers on the right hand side section, under icebreaker interview questions and answers, these are some of the questions that you need to jog your memory. So under icebreaker, I've got 15 icebreaker interview questions and answers. So it's not only tell us about yourself, there are a few other questions as well, open-ended questions. And also then I've got 8 real life SAR technique examples that we discussed. And also there are a few other things, that industry related stuff you can quickly brush up your knowledge before you go to your job interview. And also there is one other important thing is you have refresh your productivity. So often when I go for an interview, I might have used about 30 to 50 different tools, but if you haven't used a particular tool recently or something, it's easy to forget about it. So I'll list some of the key commercial tools as a developer, commercial and open source tools that you'll be using. Say for example, Visual VM, YourKit to do Java profiling, Hibernate, IntelliJ IDE, SOAP UI, some Postman tools, Jasper Report, iText, Sonar, Snappy, and so on. So whatever a developer might need from time to time. So the full list of debugging tools, say Kobetura, Black Duck, and so on. So you can refresh and jog your memory prior to going to an interview. So that's all for this video, and thanks for listening.